we are going to discuss the key highlights of the 2023 budget that has been recently announced by the Union Ministry. So it's going to be a 1 hour exclusive webinar. We are about to start, just waiting for a few more members to join, and accordingly, we shall then roll out live. Thank you. Good afternoon and a warm welcome to everyone present on this live webinar today, which is going to talk about decoding the Union Budget 2023, hosted by Zell Education and being conducted by Jayesh Jadhav. So I'm a faculty with Zell Education, having overall a decade of experience in teaching subjects basically pertaining to taxation as well as public policy and governments. We are going to talk about the key highlights that have been circulating across most of the social media streams, but there is a little more in-depth analysis that we need to do, as well as it's necessary for us at the same time to go ahead and understand why do we need to even discuss this. So when it comes to union budget, it definitely raises a shiver down everyone's spine, especially the ones who are going to be impacted, as well as the ones who are going to be relieved. So let's talk about what exactly does it mean for everyone and why exactly has it become a topic of discussion in recent times. First, let's understand what exactly does a budget mean. So today's point of discussion, the agenda rather for today would be defining what exactly is a budget. We are going to then go ahead and dive deep into revenue versus capital budget, a little analysis and emphasis about the Indian economy roadmap is something that we need to understand to relate to whatever we are going to hear. We are then going to come to the budget highlights. So a lot of discussion before the budget highlights is going to be about the background of what exactly does it mean. The 7 priorities which have been set by the central government in the current 2023 budget would be highlighted today. And of course, the various sources of income, revenue for the government is something that we need to know, as it's our fundamental right to ask the government where exactly is my money being spent, the one that I'm paying through taxes, both direct as well as indirect. The financial estimates, where basically we would be focusing upon how much is the government looking to spend in the upcoming financial year versus what are the various income sources for the government. And in case of there being a negative difference, how does the government plans to go ahead and fill the gap? And finally, the government initiatives that have been taken through the budget. So now let's firstly understand what exactly is a budget. Before I even start with whatever is mentioned on the screen, let's take a very simple example to make things easy for us. Assume that an individual is earning a monthly salary of 1 lakh rupees per month. So at the end of the month, the individual is sure that 1 lakh rupees is going to hit his or her account on the 31st or the 1st, which means now I need to plan my next month according to my earnings. When it comes to salaries, my earnings is definite and it is defined because I know that it is going to be 1 lakh that hits my account. So I accordingly need to plan my expenses. So the planning of my expenditure versus my income in simple terms is a budget. On a broader scale, if I have to define that, a statement of the estimated receipts and expenditure of the government for a particular financial year is simply termed as budget. Now, as far as the definition is concerned, even the constitution of the country does not really cover budget as a term in its ambit. It rather refers to it as the annual financial statement, and it is prepared by the budget division, which falls under the Department of Economic Affairs, which is currently reporting to the Ministry of Finance. Now, in the salaries example, we discussed the estimates that an individual prepares for the next upcoming month because salary is received on a monthly basis. There are estimates that people make for on an annual basis with regards to expenditures that they are going to incur annually, which talks about term life insurance, insurance policies. It could be home loan repayments. It could be the annual budgeting that an individual does. So the government also has to go ahead and do that for the entire financial year because managing one individual is rather an easier task. Managing 138 crores plus population is definitely a tedious task. So that is the only reason why the government needs to prepare a budget. It helps the government to understand what exactly is going to be my spend versus what exactly is going to be my inflow. Now, a major challenge that happens at a government level is the government is not really sure of the exact amounts. Hence, what we rely upon strongly is estimates. An estimate is nothing but it is taken from the previous financial year's actual numbers, which arrive after the analysis is done, and according to which the government plans its future budget. Now, let's assume that the budget has been announced on the 1st of February 2023. It does not mean the government woke up on the 31st of December or the 1st of January. This activity actually starts 6 months in advance. So we are talking about August 2022 is when all the departments under the Ministry of Finance start preparing the budgets. And accordingly, the estimates are prepared and revealed in the Parliament on the 1st of Feb 2023. Now, there are different sources of income for an individual, the primary source being salary, but I could also have investments that I have done in various schemes that are laid down by the government as well as to private enterprises. So I have two sources of income. One could be my salary, one could be my investment. Similarly, for the government, a budget usually is capitalized, or it's divided into two components. One is revenue and the other is capital. Now I need to understand what exactly does these terms mean. A revenue budget usually will include revenue receipts and expenditures that is spent by the government. When I say revenue receipts, these are recurring in nature, which include my top tax and non-tax revenues. And revenue expenditure is the expense that the government usually spends on day-to-day functioning of the government, as well as various services that are offered to the citizens. And in case, again, if my inflow is more than my outflow, I am at a deficit. Compare that to capital budget. My capital budget usually is long-term investments that my government does in developing infrastructure, in bringing machinery equipments, in developing health facilities, and also towards deploying education. So again, if the inflow is more than the outflow, I am at a deficit. When I compare this to an individual, if an individual's monthly income is 1 lakh, but the expense spend is going to be more than a lakh, borrowing is the only option that one can resort to. And exactly in a similar manner, the government also goes ahead and honors its fiscal deficit through external borrowings. And hence, it defines these terms under revenue and capital because it is necessary for me as a government to identify what is going to be a recurring source versus what is going to be a non-recurring source, firstly. And secondly, what exactly would require regular investments and what exactly would require a one-time investments. To summarize a long story short about capital and revenue budget, capital budget usually is better for the economy because the more I invest in my capital infrastructure, it would definitely yield me long-term results. So for an economy, it is very necessary to limit revenue budget as much extent as possible and include more of infrastructure developments and projects that yield long-term results. Now, just to understand what exactly are the various components that make up my actual budget, we have just gone ahead and taken an analysis of the last 60 years of the key parametric matrices that have been considered in order to calculate my budget. Now, what I need to basically focus on is how much am I going to earn? What are my sources of revenue as a government? And what all do I need to spend money on? Now, as far as sources of revenue for the government is concerned, the government gets a lot of money through taxes, which is further bifurcated into direct as well as indirect. The government also gets money through various grants that are offered by various institutions. The government also receives a lot of non-tax revenue, which basically arises through interests which are received by the government through the loans that they provide to the state governments, union territories, private enterprises, and many more. When it comes to non-tax revenues, the government also earns money through power supply fees. They also go ahead and earn monies through fines and penalties, through forfeitures and interest, as well as fees that are charged on communication services. So as it is a tax and a non-tax revenue bifurcation through which the government usually earns. Now let's go ahead and look at what exactly are the various capital sources or the capital receipts for the government. Capital receipts usually are receipts that the government earns through the created liabilities in order to go ahead and reduce financial assets. So when it comes to recovery of loans or when it comes to market borrowings, that exactly is what capital receipts usually comprise of. So capital expenditure, if the government is going ahead and spending on capital, that is the expenditure that the government creates, or it's either through created assets or reduced liability, and so on, and other sources. So to make the long story short, as far as the Indian economy is concerned, there are various pointers that the government considers as matrices while calculating the budget. For a government, it's a tedious process, and analysis of the past records has to be done to ensure that the estimates that they arrive at are in close proximity. So when I talk about the various components, what we have to basically consider is the gross domestic savings. So if I have to look at my economy from the last 60 years, out of the total population of my country, which stood at around 360 million, It was 9.5% of GDP is what my gross domestic savings were. That has moved up to a 31.4%. Not to forget, my population also has increased, but the increase in the GDS has been considerably better as compared to the increase in population. As far as the ratio of agriculture to the total nation's GDP is concerned, we basically were an agrarian economy, which means my major population was dependent on agriculture, which has reduced now. So instead of being a two-sector economy, we are now a three-sector economy where services have contributed majorly towards my nation's GDP. And to talk about the fiscal deficits, a fiscal deficit is nothing but in case if my inflow, my cash inflow is going to be lesser as compared to my cash outflow, which is my spendings, I need to go ahead and honor my spendings by borrowing money. And in order to go ahead and borrow money, it definitely requires funds. So a deficit is when my inflow usually is not really more as compared to my outflow. To highlight one more point over here, as far as roadmap is concerned, we are looking at the tax collections that have happened in our country so far. Currently, the direct tax to the total tax revenue ratio is looking pretty stable. It is at 50%. Now, let's talk about what exactly are the various ways through which government spends money. So considering that I, as a government, am planning my budget for the next 1 year, what I will first go ahead and analyze is what exactly are my sources of earnings, where exactly am I getting my money from? And accordingly, I will go ahead and allot a specific amount to a specific task. Now, as a citizen of the country, I usually have a lot of expectations from the government. I expect my government to go ahead and give me better roads. I expect my government to have better health facilities, better transport, better defense, better protection, and many more. The list is never ending. But as the central government, it is a very tough task because they have to make sure that everything which is a necessity has to be honored. So as far as the ministries or the department is considered, let's look at how exactly is this process followed. Now, the Ministry of Finance, along with other ministries, usually have a discussion somewhere in the month of August, where they discuss how exactly did we perform the previous year, what was the amount allotted to your department, to your ministry, and how exactly did you utilize it. And accounts of the exact spend and the allocations is usually covered over here. Now, what that helps the government to decide is, let's take an example over here. For transport department, in case if there was X amount of money allotted in the previous financial year, the estimate is usually given by the department of how much of money was spent for what all purposes. They also come up with the various projects that they are looking to go ahead and complete in the following year, for which how much is their requirement. So every department usually is given a circular on the basis of which they have to submit a document to the Ministry of Finance stating what exactly are their requirements and accordingly how much would be the revenue generation on the investments done. Again, not all departments formulate a part of the capital budget. Some departments also fall under revenue budget. So the government would be interested in the long-term gains versus the short-term gains. So capital investments usually prove out to be beneficial in this situation. When it comes to the central expenditure, so the budget estimates usually that are given by various departments totally comprise of my total expenditure. So this is classified under various different heads that the government presents in the annual budget. So if I take my total expenditure for the current year, what the government is estimating is around 45 lakh crores. 45.9 lakh crores is going to be what I need as a country for the next financial year versus how much am I going to actually earn this year? That's close to 27.2, which means I'm stuck at a fiscal deficit of 15.4 lakh crore. Now, how do I meet that? If I have to explain this example in simple terms, my earning per month is 1 lakh rupees, but my spend is going to be 1 lakh 20,000. So where do I get that 1 lakh? Where do I get the additional 20,000 from? A simple answer to that is borrowing. The only problem with that is if I keep on rolling that debt slowly and steadily, if the income does not go up, the debt keeps on going up slowly. So we have to ensure that the ratio between my inflow and my outflow is balanced well. As a government, we have been taking loans from the last 50 years, and the government is spending heavy amount on the interest payments as well as repayment of principals. So it's been a challenge for the government to go ahead and meet to a point where the revenue usually goes ahead and exceeds the previous year's performance, and the outflow, which is my expenditure, is curbed or controlled compared to the previous year. So every department usually goes ahead and makes an effort to ensure that this balance is achieved. However, every year on a year-on-year basis, we have only found that the expenditure is increasing, but the revenue usually does not show a positive trend. If I have to understand a simple reason behind the same, I have to consider how much of my population or what percentage of my population usually pays taxes. And the answer is surprising compared to the United States, where the tax-paying population usually comprises of 80%. In India, the ratio is pretty bad. It's around 3%. So not majority of my population falls in the tax-paying bracket, firstly. Secondly, for the ones that fall in the tax-paying bracket, the government definitely allows deductions, as well as there are many people and many businesses which usually were not regulated over the time, due to which tax evasions were a common scenario. So if my population becomes tax paying, if the per head income usually increases, the government receives more scope to go ahead and enhance its revenue. But unless that happens, there are not many sources that the government has to earn revenue. An apparent result of the same is increases in my taxes. So when I say direct taxes as well as my indirect taxes, the government usually has to go ahead and emphasize more on both in order to ensure that the tax collections increase. If I have to just sum up the long story short, the tax paying population usually is burdened to go ahead and pay higher taxes because majority of my population falls under the non-tax paying bracket. So as a country, as an economy, it is necessary for us to go ahead and ensure that proper disclosure of income is done to ensure that it comes back as a benefit to us in the long run. Now, looking at the situation that the government is facing, because we are always at a fiscal deficit, which means my income is less as compared to my expenses, there were a few highlights that Honorable Finance Minister Dr. Nirmala Sitharaman had recently announced 48 hours before. When it comes to the sources of income to the government, we will divide this into direct versus indirect taxes. So when I say direct taxes, I usually have my five heads, which is income from salaries, profession, house property, capital gains, as well as other sources, out of which salaries and business is usually the vertical that applies or that covers majority of my ground as compared to the other three heads. I'm saying that they do exist, but the emphasis is more on salaries as well as business profession. So whenever the government announces a budget, major focus is only on these two heads when it comes to direct taxes, because these are my major tax paying population as compared to the health, as compared to the house property, as compared to capital gains, as well as compared to other sources. Individuals usually tune up their ears when the budget is announced, as well as all the entrepreneurs of my country, especially because India is the land of startups now. Everyone is really, really keen to hear what the government is going to bring this year. As compared to the previous year that we will be talking about, let's look at a few highlights that were really, really astonishing 48 hours ago. So today, the government has 6 new income slabs that have been launched. Along with that, there was something called as an old tax rime versus a new tax rime. So we will talk about this as we go ahead. And what exactly is the rebate limit increase all about? It is research-based finance, which means now the government has decided to allocate scarce resources very efficiently to go ahead and bring down the wastages. It also has been decided that the permanent account number, which is the PAN card, is going to be a common business identifier. The government also goes ahead and emphasizes on the sustainable goals that are laid down by the United Nations, under which the Green Credit Program has been given emphasis in the current budget. And the government also goes ahead and decides to help 1 crore farmers for natural farming. So we'll discuss each of these points as we go ahead during this discussion. We are planning to go ahead and establish Center of Excellence as well as top educational institutions in order to ensure that we emphasize more on the resources available and we capitalize more on the existing artificial intelligence technologies. Of course, there were a couple of highlights that were covered, which are mentioned over here, which basically relate to infrastructure, namely the railways, the road project, urban infrastructure, as well as airports and helipads. A major relief by the current budget is for the micro, small, and medium enterprises because 95% of the amount forfeited during COVID is being considered in this budget. So now let's look at what exactly does this mean to us. The Saptarishi plan, or the 7 priorities that are laid down by the existing budget, includes inclusive development, reaching the last mile, infrastructure and investment, unleashing the potential, green growth, youth power, and financial sector. In the initial days, when we are talking about 15 years back, India used to have something called as a 5-year plan. So 5-year plans usually were the long-term objectives that were set forward by every government that was in power. So that for the next 5 years, as long as we are in power, this is what we are planning to do. But right now, apart from the defense sector, 5-year plans usually are not applicable for any other purpose, due to which budget emphasis is something that the country looks up to. In the current year, what the government plans to do is achieve excellency in these 7 fields, and they plan to do that through a demographic approach. Now, let's talk about the revenue sources of the government, which is direct taxes. Like I said, 2 heads to focus on. One is salaries, and the other is business and profession. Now we are talking about how much will I pay as tax to the government. And every year, the government keeps on changing the rates of tax or the slabs of tax. To talk about the old slabs, which were as per the old tax rate, if an individual is earning less than 2.5 lakhs, he does not pay any tax. As per the previous policies, even if your income falls between 2.5 to 5 lakhs, you have to pay 5% of your income as tax. But the government did allow a rebate, which means whatever tax is calculated, you can actually go ahead and claim the rebate while filing your IT returns. So let's take that as an example. If my employer is deducting tax on a monthly income of 30,000 rupees under TDS, while filing my returns, whatever tax has been collected at source by my employer, I can actually go ahead and take a rebate of that, which means I can receive a refund as long as I have not exceeded 5 lakh rupees. Now, this benefit was not really available to the new tax rate, which we are going to talk about next. These were the tax slabs that were applicable in the old tax rate, due to which it was very convenient for people. One major benefit of the old tax rate was all your deductions, which are allowed as per the Income Tax Act, were allowed as per the only under the old tax rate. So deductions were not really a part of the new tax rate. And also the rates were pretty high, due to which the government understood the priorities and now it decides to go ahead and make the new tax rate as the default rate. I understand that people are raising their hands. We'll definitely take the queries. I request everyone to please go ahead and post your questions in the Q&A section for the ones attending so that we can go ahead and discuss this further. I can see that there have been questions that have been asked on the tax slabs. So let me take that one at a time. Now, under the new tax rate, like I just said earlier, the deductions were not possible, which means whatever income you earn, you go ahead and pay tax flat at the rate that you fall due to. As per the policies that have been amended through the new budget, the government now increases the nil limit from 2.5 to 3 lakhs. So if your income falls below 3 lakh per annum, you don't pay any tax. If your income is between 3 to 6 lakhs, you basically pay 5% tax. And if your income falls between 6 and 9 lakhs, it's 10%, and it keeps on increasing as time passes by. Now, if I have to just go ahead and consider one thing over here, which is this much. Let's say, for instance, if my income is less than 7 lakhs, now I have to just check how much tax will I go ahead and pay usually without the rebate being applicable. So let's say, for instance, if an individual is earning somewhere close to 6.5 lakhs, he will pay tax. So on the first 3 lakhs, there is nil. On the next 3 lakhs, that is 3 to 6 lakhs, it's 5%. So that's 5% of 3 lakhs, which is 15,000. And on the next 50,000, which is 6 lakhs to 6.5 lakhs, the individual is going to pay tax at 10%, which is going to be another 5,000. So the total tax that was actually payable by an individual without the rebate condition was 20,000 rupees. Now, because of there being a rebate as per the new rhyme, which is mentioned over here, This tax of 20,000 rupees is not really payable by the individual, because in case if the tax is deducted at source, let's say for instance, if the employer goes ahead and deducts the TDS, I can actually go ahead and claim back a rebate while filing my ITR. So when I file my ITR after the financial year ends, if I fall within 7 lakhs, I can go ahead and claim that amount as a rebate. What happens if I exceed 7 lakhs? The entire tax becomes payable, including the surcharge. So that exactly is how the government has planned and brought forward the rebate to the new scheme. Rebate was only applicable in the old scheme, but now the new scheme also gets the benefit, which means there is a very high possibility that many people will now switch from the old to the new rhyme. Of course, for the business and profession, there has been changes that have happened as per the new tax rhyme, which is something that we discuss next. There is a question that has come on rebate, so I'll take that because we are discussing something relative. How exactly does a rebate work? Well, in simple words, for instance, if the government goes ahead and we will take an example. Let's say, for instance, if Mr. X is a salaried individual who earns approximately rupees 30,000 per month. So now, or we'll take a higher amount just to make sure that it's 50,000. So in case if the individual is earning rupees 50,000 per month, so my annual income is going to be rupees 6 lakhs. Now on the 6 lakhs, I have to pay tax. So as per the first slab, which is over here, I will pay nil on the first 3 lakhs. The next 5% on the 3 to 6 lakhs, that is going to be 15,000 rupees. So when my employer calculates my salary every month, in the entire year from April 2023 to March 2024, he'll deduct 15,000 rupees on a monthly basis. What I will do is when I file my ITR, I will go ahead and tell the government that this is something that my employer has deducted, the 15,000 rupees. But as per the policies that you said, up to 7 lakh rupees, I can go ahead and claim a rebate. So for the entire year, the 15,000 is deducted as tax already from April to March. A rebate will allow me to claim that back when I file my ITR. And ITR usually starts after the year end. So once the year ends, I have to file my returns. This will now motivate people to go ahead and file returns because rebate is brought to the new scheme. So it really, really helps the government also to ensure a better compliance in a broader picture. And that exactly is how rebate works. I hope the question is answered. And we will definitely leave a link where you can post the questions. In case if it is not answered during the session, please feel free to connect. We will definitely discuss this further. So the new tax rhyme sounds more positive because now I have 6 different rates compared to 5. And if I go ahead and check the income slabs over here, every income slab has an increase of 5%, whereas the income slab is bifurcated into 3 lakhs into the denominators of 3. So from 6 lakhs to 9 lakhs to 12 to 15 and 15 and above. It's only in this last bracket is where the difference is 10%. But apart from that, for every other bracket up till 12 to 15 lakhs, the rate goes up by 5% only. Even if I compare this to the previous tax rhyme, considering the deductions that are available still there, the new tax rhyme really seems to be promising because it gives more scope for individuals now as the benefit of rebate is extended up to 7. So I understand that there is a positive and a negative over here. The positive is, of course, the rebate amount is more. The negative is there are still no deductions. So an individual really has to compare. I hope I'm still audible. Okay, great. Yeah, I hope the screen is still visible. So this is exactly how the benefit of rebate works, and I will take questions as we proceed further as time passes by. Whatever is a relevant point to be discussed, we'll definitely discuss that. Now, for businesses, I need to understand what exactly is there for business and profession, and what are the benefits that the government has decided to offer this time to ensure that they have a certain sigh of relief as well. So for businesses, there is certain benefits that have been offered through the budget. What the budget basically focuses on is the limits that were initially given to businesses is now increased. So whatever was earlier possible is better now as per the new RIME, because the limits for business and profession now has increased from 2 crores to 3 crore rupees. So anyone who is receiving cash, which is less than 5% of the total receipts, can opt for the benefit that is offered as per the new tax RIME, which means we are looking for better compliance even for businesses that are functioning in the country, because majority of the startups are currently coming up in India. The government is looking to ensure that the benefit is given to businesses as well. So relaxations in the limits as well as enhancement of confidence to entrepreneurs is given through the new tax RIME, which is really going to be beneficial for professionals as well as for entrepreneurs, because now they can go ahead and save a lot of money through their income. If I have to summarize that shortly, 6% of their total revenues usually is considered as income, and they pay tax on the income that they earn. So that becomes a better thing now for businesses, because out of my 5 heads under direct tax, the firm 2 heads have got a huge relief, at least as far as the tax slabs are concerned and as far as the rates are concerned. So both the ways, it's a win-win situation. Now let's look at the other component, which is the indirect taxes. In simple terms, direct tax is something that I directly pay to the government on the income that I earn, whereas indirect tax is something that goes to the government through the utilization of goods and services that I make throughout the year. So on everything that you buy from the market today, like be it a biscuit or be it any other service that you take from the government or from anywhere in the market, you pay tax on it. We must be aware about a simple term called as MRP, which is printed on every single product that you buy, maximum retail price, which means it's inclusive of all taxes. So on whatever goods you buy, you definitely go ahead and get taxes. You pay taxes over there. Just to go ahead and highlight one more benefit, I believe that we might have missed over here. There was one more thing that was added to the new tax RIME, which is standard deductions. Let me clarify what is a standard deduction. On whatever income an individual earns, he can claim up to 50,000 rupees as a standard deduction, which was only earlier possible in the old tax RIME, but now that benefit is also given to the new tax RIME, which means citizens have the option to go ahead and choose between the two. Although the default one is going to be the new RIME, but you can still go ahead and choose the one that is beneficial for you, for which it is better to go ahead and calculate where exactly is my benefit more. From a country's perspective, the new RIME is expected to be influential, as well as it will bring a revolution, because the government plans better tax compliance through the new RIME. To talk about the indirect taxes now, the government earns indirect taxes through goods and services that the population consumes, as well as through all the goods and services that are brought in the country through imports. So there were legislative changes that happened in the custom laws. Basic customs duty was changed on certain products, and it was also increased on certain products. Now, when the government decides to go ahead and increase the rate of tax on any commodity, one thing that the government considers usually is the utility of the product, and is it necessary. So for something which is not a necessity, the government usually goes ahead and charges a higher rate of tax. For example, luxurious cars or gold ornaments. These are luxurious items, not a necessity for everyone. But when it comes to anything that we consume on a daily basis, it could be medicines, it could be agricultural products, or it could also go ahead and be technology, because we are definitely moving towards tech. These things are required for my country for overall development and sustainability. So according to the categorization of the need as well as the utility, the government goes ahead and decides what exactly are the changes it will do in the rates, and how exactly will this balance out in the long run. So customs duty definitely was decreased on agricultural products that were imported. When it comes to agricultural product imports, we are talking about only certain line of products which are relevant for the country. So let me go ahead and just take examples of a few agricultural products on which the customs duty has been decreased. We are talking about pecan nuts. We are talking about fish meal for manufacture of aquatic feed, krill meals, fish lipid oil, crude glycerin that is used in the manufacture of epichlorohydrin. So all these are necessary for me to go ahead and either boost my exports or to sustain my existing requirements, for which the government relaxes rates on the same. When it comes to gems and jewelry sectors, the government has decided to decrease customs duty. In fact, they have announced a nil rate on the seeds that are used in the manufacturing of rough lab grown diamonds. As far as my IT and electronics is concerned, there are specific chemicals or items that are used in the manufacture of precalcine ferrite powders. Anything that relates to lithium ion batteries, we have gone ahead and relaxed rates on all these things which are necessary for us. Now, usually our country goes ahead and imports a lot of goods and products, but majority of it is not really imported only for consumption. We also import certain things with an intention of manufacturing something out of it and then exporting the final product. So to boost exports, to ensure that in case if I don't have the raw material available to export a particular commodity, I will import the raw material, manufacture it here, and then export it further. It saves a lot of my manufacturing cost. It brings more employment to my economy. So for that purposes, we import a lot of these things which are manufactured here and then further exported. The government has decided to reduce import duties on such items that are manufactured here, not utilized. Now, as far as the increase in the customs duty is concerned, like I said, the goods which are not really beneficial for the country or are categorized under luxurious goods are usually the ones that the customs duty has been increased on. So we are talking about precious metals like silver as well as silver door. We are talking about gems and jewelries, which are artificial articles of precious metals, which is gold, silver, and platinum. The rates are increased by 5% on that. Intimation jewelry also has gone up by 5%. So from 20, it's now 25. And as far as automobiles is concerned, the luxurious automobiles, we are talking about 3000 cc plus. On that, the percentage or the rate of duty has gone up from 60 to 70, as well as the same is applicable on electric vehicles, which belong to the luxurious categories. And electronic appliances, which is the kitchen chimneys, are one of the few items on which the rates have gone up high. As far as excise is concerned, which is one of the other sources of indirect taxes to the government, we are talking about products which are cigarettes. On cigarettes, the duty has gone up high. It is going up high because firstly, it's injurious to health, as well as it is not really beneficial for the economy, due to which it is beneficial if the rates keep going high on products which are not really going to be that utilized. Now, looking at a few schemes that the government has launched, we have so far discussed what exactly are the sources of revenue for the government. So my country earns money through whatever goods and services I supply to my economy, as well as whatever I go ahead and export out. I also earn money through whatever income that my population earns, they pay me taxes. So as a country, we have to be very vigilant on how much tax we collect and how do we utilize the tax. We have spoken about what all sources the government earns money through. Now let's talk about what all will the money be spent on. Like I said earlier at the start of my discussion, as a citizen of my country, I need better roads, I need better health, I need better infrastructure, I need better education, I need better connectivity, and of course, I need better development. But all that definitely comes at a price. As the current budget highlights a total expenditure of close to 45.9 lakh crores, our total income estimates, which is the receipts, is estimated to be somewhere close to 27.2 lakh crores, which means my earnings is not going to match my spendings. So I need to borrow money. We are talking about market borrowings and international borrowings. There are more additional sources that the government will rely upon, but it's an estimate, not an exact, because we don't have the exact numbers. We only have to rely on the close estimates. So talking about what exactly will my money be spent on, we are looking towards development of things which are going to yield result in the long run. Like I had clarified earlier, a capital expenditure is something which yields result in the long run for the country. Whereas a revenue expenditure is something which is recurring in nature, but it's short-lived. So I need to spend more on development for a long-term perspective. So the inclusive development that is planned as per the budget usually will include cash transfers to over 11.4 crore farmers under various agricultural schemes that have been launched. Before we discuss about the various things that have been included, these are just the highlights of the entire document that have been announced by the government. We are touch basing upon the ones which are going to be strongly relevant for our understanding, as well as it would help us to connect with the entire concept of budget, so that tomorrow, as a layman, we can understand why exactly do we prepare budgets, why is it even necessary for me to discuss these terminologies, and how does it help me as an individual to gain this knowledge. So the basic facilities include LPG gas connections, drinking water, proper sanitation, protection to the minorities, as well as various schemes that are constructed under SPM. Reaching the last mile is one of the key highlights that was laid down by the current budget, because the Pradhan Mantri PVTG scheme is going to focus on the development mission that has been launched in the current budget. We are going to provide financial assistance to various micro irrigation projects in the prone regions, drought prone regions of Karnataka. These were the basic highlights that the budget reached. As far as infrastructure is concerned, capital expenditure, which is long term in nature, I have increased my capital investment to 10 lakh crore rupees, which means I'm going to spend a lot on developing my country. So we are looking for better railway facilities. We are looking for better road connectivity. We are looking for better network connectivity. We are looking for better infrastructure. We are looking for better hospitals. We are looking for better educational institutions of higher importance. And we are looking for a better India. As I have to spend on these sources, I need to ensure that I have enough money to fund the operations, which is currently at a deficit. And that has been a usual trend, because we always have a fiscal deficit every year. Considering the percentage of population that pays tax, the ratio is alarming. But as time passes by and as people become more responsible, we can definitely expect things to change. As far as the AI-based solutions is concerned, so artificial intelligence is taking the world by storm. It is deployed and developed in various sectors, and agriculture is no new to it. So we are looking for AI-based solutions in the agricultural sector. We are looking for sustainable cities as a concept. So we definitely have a sustainable index which is being developed under various schemes of the government, whereby we are classifying various cities on various parameters which will track the overall development. And we have to ensure that funds are deployed towards this. We are talking about a national data governance policy, whereby we are trying to go ahead and set up a financial database to ensure that we keep a close eye on our spendings, as well as all the data could be accessed at our fingertips. As far as the green growth is concerned, now this is in line with the UN 17 sustainable goals that have been announced by the United Nations. We are talking about a sustainable ecosystem development to ensure that we treat waste effectively, as well as we avoid any unnecessary wastage. The government has decided to promote the coastal shipping for energy, and a huge budget of 35,000 crores has been invested towards energy transition, as well as towards petroleum and natural gas. So if I talk about where exactly is my money spent, this is exactly where the government plans to go ahead and spend our taxpayers' money. We are looking to boost tourism, because this definitely earns a lot of revenue to the government. It's a revenue receiver. Again, recurring in nature. Of course, we have to ensure that the flow is constant without any major changes. We are talking about setting up a national financial information registry and various other schemes by the government that have been announced for the overall development and that the government is planning for. Now, as far as the vision for Amrit Kal is concerned, the government is looking for opportunities with a focus on the youth, where we are looking for more growth and job creation. If there are more jobs, there would be more people earning money. If the earning potential increases, majority of my population will fall under the tax paying bracket. If majority of the population falls under the tax paying bracket, the revenues for the government through direct taxes definitely goes up higher, which means the burden of taxes on every individual slowly and steadily will reduce. So it is very evident and important for us to ensure that we achieve this in the long run. And this will definitely bring strong and stable macroeconomic environment. Just let us have a small glance at a sector-based update on the union budget of how exactly has it been so far versus how exactly is it planned in the future. Agriculture, one of the three major sectors of the economy, has received a boost because of the increased population. The overall load on food security has gone up high. So the government has definitely announced a good budget for the agricultural sector, where they have decided to go ahead and allot a good enough amount to ensure that the need or the necessities of the agrarian economy is fulfilled. We don't really have a lot of agricultural produce that happens only in India. We rely upon exports for various agricultural and allied purposes. So government grants definitely have been provided for these purposes, but we have to ensure that we become a self-sustainable economy so that we reduce our loads on imports or our reliability on other countries for this purpose. So agriculture definitely have 65% of the population that lives in the rural areas, out of which 45% is dependent on agriculture. So agriculture has received a whooping amount this year to ensure that we emphasize more on production at home rather than relying on imports from. Otherwise, when it comes to economic services, we are expecting a total of 8.2 lakh crores that has been assigned to agriculture out of the total expenditure of 45.9 lakh. This is exactly how it looks. Now, when it comes to expenditures that are submitted by various departments, there are various ministries that currently function under the union government. So we are talking about Ministry of Defense, we are talking about Ministry of Culture, we are talking about Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Ministry of Home Affairs, we are talking about Ministry of Department of Consumer Affairs, and of course, there are many other departments that function under various ministries, Ministry of Coal, Ministry of Civil Aviation. It could be many more. So what happened in August last year was the finance ministry definitely issued a circular that we need to prepare our next year budget. Please submit an estimate on the basis of what you have spent versus what was allocated last year, according to which we will go ahead and issue a budget. Now, every ministry is definitely competing amongst themselves to go ahead and get the maximum budget out of it. If we compare health versus infrastructure, when it comes to health, we need money for better hospitals, better medical services. Whereas when it comes to infrastructure, we need better roadways, better connectivity, better transport. So both the departments will go ahead and present an estimate to the Ministry of Finance. According to the various estimates that come through the department, the ministry will then sit together and discuss how much of the requirement can they fulfill. So it is not actually possible to fulfill the entire requirement, for which they have to compromise on certain aspects, due to which that answers the question why exactly are many projects always on hold and they don't really get honored immediately. So infrastructure being one of the crucial parameters, the budget for this year has been increased by 30% to 10 lakh crores on infrastructure, which means we can expect better infrastructure development in the country. When it comes to fintech, we have a lot of fintech companies that have emerged from India. Approximately more than 4,000 fintech companies currently exist. And there has been a boost that the government has given to fintech to ensure that the KYC process is simplified, as well as majority of the fintech that fall under the MSMEs, which is the micro, small, and medium enterprises, will go ahead and receive relief under the government grants. When it comes to tourism, we are looking to promote tourism. We see a lot of advertisements that the government does through various channels, Incredible India being one of them. So we are looking to go ahead and boost tourism because it brings me a lot of foreign exchange, brings me a lot of foreign revenue because of people from different countries visiting India. As far as the automobile sector is concerned, there have been certain norms that the government has brought in. I would not really say that the automobile sector has received a boost. It would rather be a neutral approach because I don't think that many benefits have gone in a positive direction to the automobile sector. One thing which has happened good is the education and skill development. Education, by far, in the history of the budgets that have been presented in the past many years, education this year has received the highest allocation compared to any other year in the past. So it's like over 1.12 lakh crores is what has been allocated to education, where we are now as a country looking towards developing higher educational institutions and institutions of national importance. Plus, majority of the funds that have been allocated are towards educating the rural as well as the underprivileged population. So getting everyone on one platform is something that the current budget, as far as education is concerned, is focused upon. And we are looking to ensure that these schemes go ahead and pick up momentum in the recent year. There is one thing that India does not manufacture, and I don't know how many of us are aware about this, but all of us use smartphones today, and our phone batteries definitely are not removable anymore, but they comprise of lithium ion technology. So our battery is lithium ion battery, which is unfortunately not manufactured in India. We still have to import the lithium ion technology. So the PLI scheme that has been launched by the government will have its primary focus on mobile manufacturing and other electronics in India. Government grant has also been received and relief is given to lithium ion technology in India because we are planning to go ahead and set up this in India to ensure that we reduce our reliability for lithium ion batteries on our exporter countries. We are looking at an estimate of 15.4 crore units to be manufactured by this year. And India is currently being a major ground as far as mobile technology manufacturing is concerned. We currently have Apple, which is currently also planning to move to India for its complete assembly line. So in the mobile communications as well as mobile manufacturing segment, the government definitely has given a lot of grant to ensure we get a lot of business in India, and majority of the manufacturing happens over here. Again, a part of capital expenditure because it's for the long term. So that brings us towards the end of the presentation that we had. I'll just summarize whatever we have been discussing so far, and we'll definitely take the questions now because I can see that there have been a lot of questions that have cropped up in the Q&A section. So let's go ahead and have a look at what exactly do these questions say. Great. So to sum up a long story short, we are looking at various sources of income for the government versus various sources of expenditure, just ensuring that we get the maximum benefit out of whatever has been announced. The most important aspect as an individual for me is how much of tax am I paying versus what benefit am I receiving. So to come back to the previous to the slide where we have been discussing the tax slabs, somebody has asked a question on rebate. So I'll just quickly go ahead and highlight rebate once again over here. We'll just go to the previous slide once to understand the previous tax slabs. We had nil income between 0 to 2.5 lakh as my earnings. From 2.5 lakh to 5 lakhs, it was 5%. And I did earn rebate on this amount. Which is definitely now possible in the new tax time as well. And accordingly, the slab kept on increasing. But under the new rhyme, now it is really, really interesting because on the first 3 lakh rupees, there is no tax. Between 3 to 6 lakhs, it is ideally 15,000. But under the rebate limit scheme, you can claim that back from the government through filing of income tax returns. 6 to 9 lakhs, if you exceed 7 lakhs, then there is no rebate. But up to 7 lakhs, whatever tax you pay, which is 50 plus 10, that's 25, you can claim that back from the government. If I compare the slab increase that the new rhyme introduces, it is much more better as compared to the previous slabs. Of course, the deductions definitely are a point of concern because we don't really have a say over there, but it really helps an individual who has increase in his earnings as far as the tax payments are concerned. So comparatively, an individual usually will pay less amount of tax unless and until he has huge amount of deductions that are possible. The overall budget for this year is expected to achieve an increase in GDP by, we are anticipating a GDP of 7.5% plus, which means the components that have been discussed by the Ministry of Finance through the budget are proving to be beneficial in the long run. We are planning moves, the government is planning moves now to ensure that whatever is being deployed towards capital expenditure is reutilized and it is capitalized in the long run. Also, it helps me as an individual as well as the economy gets stronger as time passes by. So I think that was all that I had to present, and I will definitely now take questions on the basis of whatever we have received over here. Okay, think I have one question as far as rebate is concerned. Rebate, I believe, has been explained, but just to understand, whatever taxes a salaried individual pays through his monthly TDS deductions done by the employer, he can claim that back as a rebate from the government when he files his ITR. So I'll just repeat that same point again. Is the old tax, the second question that I have over here is the old tax rank better or the new one? I feel that it is a calculative decision to be taken, because in case if I have a lot of deductions, for example, home loan EMIs, for example, if I have a lot of investments in public provident fund, if I have term life insurances or any other insurance plans, or if in case I have any other deposit schemes that are notified by the government under deductions, if I have a lot of that money that I have invested, SIPs, mutual funds, then as an individual, I need to calculate what is better for me, whether I need to go ahead and switch to the new rhyme or whether I need to go ahead and stay with what I have. Because the government has still kept that as an option to the individuals, that they can still continue with the old tax rhyme if they need to. Uh, it totally is a calculative decision to be taken, because we need to calculate what benefits us the most and accordingly then opt for the scheme. As far as businesses are concerned, I did highlight that the limits have been increased for businesses from 2 crores to 3 crores and from 50 lakhs to 75 lakhs now. The major problem over there, I would not call it a problem, but it is rather a requirement. A major requirement over there is we need to ensure that we stay in the scheme for 5 years, which means we can't really, opt out of it. There is a time bound commitment. So for businesses, there is definitely one condition that is attached. But overall, if I still compare this to the older policies, I personally feel that the new policies, the new extension of limits is definitely beneficial. When it comes to individuals, there was one more benefit which I think I missed on as far as the highlights are concerned: leave encashment. So the initial leave encashment limit, which was way back declared in 2002, was 3 lakh rupees, which means from the past 2 decades, we have not touched based upon that aspect at all, which now has been enhanced. So from a 3 lakhs, it is up to 25 lakh rupees of leave encashment exemption that the government has announced. So we can say that whatever leaves that we have not availed for during our entire life course, in case if an individual plans to encash the leave at his retirement, he has an exemption that he can claim for up to 25 lakhs. So up to 25 lakh rupees of leave earned can be exempted. So there are definitely a lot of good things that the government is planning for us. The only expectation that the government has from us, and I strongly feel it's a fair expectation, is be responsible citizens. Make sure that our income declarations are done in line with the policies, and ensure that our tax payments are compliant enough to ensure that there are no tax evasions that we do unnecessarily. Because whatever money we spend as tax payments to the government will definitely come back as a bigger benefit to us as individuals. So with that note, I think I'm stopping over here because we are coming towards the end of the session. I am definitely going to take the questions that have arisen now. There was one question for 5 lakhs to 7 lakhs. Okay. Explain the changes in the tax structure. Business is considered. Okay. I think I'll just highlight on those questions again. I have my questions over here. I was unable to view the question window. Sorry about that. ADC can be claimed under the new rhyme. Yes, it definitely can be claimed now. Income increases from 7 lakh to 9 lakhs. Then will there be rebate? Diksha, the answer to that is no. The moment you cross 7 lakhs, you definitely don't have any rebate. Majority of the questions are repetitive nature, and I'm hoping that I've answered that. Tax slabs, rebate. Is there any limit on the income of a person should earn minimum for applying for rebate? Again, that's up to 7 lakhs. He can apply for rebate. If it's below 3 lakhs, any which ways he does not fall under the tax slab. But as a compliant citizen, please ensure that you always file your ITR regardless of whatever amount of income you earn. Even if you are falling in the nil slab, still file your returns, because it is necessary for you to notify the government how much are you earning. So please ensure that we are compliant on that front. Filing returns is a right that an individual has. As a citizen, we have the right. and we need to ensure that we capitalize on it. Also, to highlight, the number of return filings that have happened in our nation have increased whoopingly. The time frame for processing the returns has come down drastically. So from a 45-day window, we have come down to 16 days. We are looking at 6.8 crore filings that have happened. So on that front, we are really going strong as a country, but we have to stay compliant and we have to ensure that we follow the norms on a regular basis. I think we don't have any more questions that are popping up here right now. But in case if there are any more questions, I would definitely take that up. We will share a link where the questions can be shared, and we definitely will revert back to it as early as we can. So with that remark, I think we are calling it off a day. Once again, I really appreciate uh, all of you being there. Mohammed Qasim, I believe you have raised your hand. Let me check. Okay, I think you have posted a question which I just saw. Explain what the government means by providing 93% relief, okay, to MSMEs. Now, usually what happens is when it comes to carry forwarding of losses, there was a limit that the government had placed on the MSMEs. It could only be carry forwarded for the number of years, X number of years. That limit is increased now. So they can carry forward losses now for up to 7 years. So this really helps them because it really brings uh, in case of failure by MSMEs to execute any contracts that were undertaken during the COVID period. So 95% of the forfeited amount, which is either relating to the bid amount or relating to the performance security, will be returned to these MSMEs by the government now. And this is the relief that majority of the MSMEs are getting. So usually micro, small and medium enterprises apply for a lot of contracts with the government. There are government contracts also that they undertake. But on account of non-performance due to COVID, the forfeited amount usually that was involved in such transactions is now returned back by the government to these MSMEs. I hope that clarifies the question, but in case if there is any further explanation needed, please do ping us on the link that will be shared shortly with everyone. I think we have answered most of the questions over here. But in case if there are any more questions that anyone has, please feel free to post them and we should be good to go ahead and answer them. The budget is looking promissory this year according to my analysis, but more of, I think it is necessary for us, and it is also our right to know what exactly is the government doing with the money, how do things, how are things managed in the back end. So I personally feel that we don't learn budget in our day-to-day life, or it's not something that's taught to us while we are in school. So that is the only reason why we started the session from a very basic note on understanding why exactly are we discussing it and accordingly what lies ahead. So I hope the session was helpful. The session was brought to you and organized by Zell Education. And we are glad that there were many participants and we had a fruitful interaction today. We definitely look forward for more such interactions on the live updates that happen. And in case if there is anything that you feel is required as an explanation, and it could be a webinar that could be organized, I request the viewers to please get in touch with us. We are definitely glad and keen to go ahead and connect with majority of you on such crucial topics, which are definitely necessary for us to understand as well as to educate ourselves. So with that remark, I'll definitely end the session on a closing note, which I normally use. Education is something that stays behind us, stays behind with us when everything else that we have learned has been forgotten. So with that note, this is Jayesh Jadhav officially calling the session towards the end. Once again, thank you for all the participants for joining. And we definitely look forward to stay connected with you for more such topics, for more such updates, for more such fruitful interactions. Till then, see you, good luck, take care, and be responsible Indian citizens. Thank you.